Hope you've had a good week. This is Dr. Shaw-Thornburg coming to you with your lecture for our first unit on Revolutionaries and Dreamers. We're starting this week with work that represents the Black Arts Movement. This week's unit covers the period of the Black Arts Movement and spans the 15-year period from 1960 to 1975. Honestly, we could do a whole class on the literature and culture of this period, so what I've tried to do this week is to select works that will help you to identify, the important trends in this movement. First of all, make sure you read the period introduction. I want you to pay particular attention to the foundations of the Black Arts Movement, specifically in the black politics of the age in terms of black power and the civil rights movement. Pay attention to the discussion of the relationship between artists and community. One of the things that distinguishes the Black Arts Movement from the Harlem Renaissance, for example, is that not only was the audience for black art presumed to be black, but the audience was supposed to be nourished and fed by black art. Art was in fact a product that emerged from collaboration between artist and audience and took place in community spaces, not just formal settings like theaters. That audience is also presumed to be ordinary, everyday black people, not just the talented 10, speaking on behalf of such an audience. Note too that the Black Arts Movement looks to black traditions in Africa for inspiration, especially Africa, which is undergoing a period of decolonization during this period. I also want you to be attentive to the sources, the roots of black art during this period, especially as it is described on page 553 of the intro. Finally, I also want you to be aware of some of the critiques of the black art movement, namely that it embraced a vision of blackness that tended to minimize the voices of women, that tended to embrace homophobia, and that eventually promulgated very limiting notions of what it means to be black, what the editors of the book call a quote-unquote bellicose essentialism. As far as the specific readings go, I've chosen two icons of this period, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., to represent the different roots of black consciousness during this period. Malcolm X tells his life story in order to recover for his readers the roots of a burgeoning black nationalism in one man's life. It is telling, for example, that he was early on familiar with the work of Marcus Garvey. In ushering in black nationalism into the modern world, he draws on his experience with urban street life, incarceration, the Nation of Islam, and his conversion to the Islam of the Sunni Muslims. Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, on the other hand, draws strongly on an international tradition of civil disobedience and nonviolent protest, and a deeply rooted social gospel derived from one strain of Christianity. BARAKA and GIOVANNI are included to give you a taste of the idioms and black traditions writers, poets drew on in reshaping the aesthetic that African Americans use to represent themselves, their history, and their people. BARAKA's poem calls for an art that is directed toward black people and that inspires them to action. It calls for a poetry that is rooted in the concrete, everyday experience of black life. It also, incidentally, includes some anti-Semitism, which is simply anti-Jewish racism, so you want to keep an eye out for that. GIOVANNI's two poems put black experiences front and center in the Black Arts Movement. Nikki Rosa proclaims that, quote, black love is black wealth, thereby rejecting materialistic Western values that tend to associate black experience with lack. Ego tripping draws on black history as a source of the world's wealth and does so in a way that resonates with black oral tradition. We close with Alice Walker's Everyday Use, which provides a coda to this period. One of the questions raised by the critique of the Black Arts Movement was, did it reach the ordinary black people for whom it had been intended? What the story represents is a contest over representation of black culture that pits the children of black power against all those other ordinary people back home. I think the story leaves that question unanswered. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that in the discussion board this week. Finally, and this is just a heads up about where we are in the class, please go ahead and start working on the proposal for your project. That is your next writing assignment for this course, and it will be due next week, so please do go ahead and get to work on that. I look forward to seeing what you have to say this week.